This is Coffee Kevin, and I'm here today and back at the scene of the crime for the Vinci coffee maker, which I'm really finding fascinating. And I'm going to kind of walk through how I test a coffee maker, and I mean it is pretty neat. It's got some things that I'm getting into, even though I haven't really taken its temperature yet, and that's part of the process. But I'll save the best for last. I really want to find out how it looks when it's spinning around. And thank you to Patricia at Da Vinci. She told me how I can show it to you. So that I really appreciate that inside information. She also cautioned me that they take temperature seriously enough that may compromise my temperature readings, although it will also be an easy way to take the temperature, to be honest, with my favorite thermometer, which is this one, which is a Thermapen thermometer, and I had to get one to catch up with my son, who has one, of course, and he wanted to, came over one day and kind of sniffed at my thermometer and said, Dad, you really ought to have a Thermapen. Well, okay, now I do. But it anyway. The problem is you can't get it to bend, and get in there without compromising the lid and letting some steam out. Which I understand their idea is heat retention. We can talk about temperature, which I think is slightly overrated in the coffee world, because it's there's a saying among engineers, when someone says why did they, I'm not going to do the joke properly. I don't do engineer jokes as a rule, but it's the idea is why do we measure the temperature? Because we can. It's one of those, we love things that we can measure, although some of the things that matter most to coffee are very difficult, if possible at all, to measure. And anyway, this one does one of those things really well. And I'm going to show you something. You want me to show you the spinner thing? Yeah. Okay, good. There we are. There it is from the. And we were able to, there we go. That's what I wanted to do. No, go back to that shot. That's what I wanted to do. And then I actually brought a light with me so that we can show it. And I realize my hands are too bright. But look at that. Isn't that cool? It's the idea is it's like I said, it's like an upside down lawn sprinkler, and as it spins around, you can see the water gets. Well, we'll see it in a minute. We'll see an overhead shot of it while it's in motion. So let's make some coffee. And okay, I'm done with this shot. I think. All right, and then I'll put this back down because we do want it to be over the coffee when it scatters the water around, obviously. Now I need to put some water in here, and let's see if I can do this. This is really hard to do on camera. I wish I had not. I'd done this earlier. Oh, yeah, that's fine. I just wanted to get a liter of water in here. I'm convinced so far, many auto drip makers now are optimized for 1 liter of operation. And automatic drip, if it has a limitation, it seems like it's always optimal, because the length of time that the grounds are exposed to water is always limited by the amount of coffee you're making, because the concept of drip is it's a continuous process. So if you make a small amount of coffee, you have very little contact time and if you make larger and larger batches, it's longer and longer. And this, as I mentioned the other day, this coffee maker with 12 cups, which is its max, is like 10 to 11 minutes in contact time, and that's too long. I suppose you could. One of the things you can do is use ultra coarse ground coffee, which will help to handle that. And I haven't done that experiment yet, but that's kind of how the Chemex works with the with some of its longer brew times. Because if you make a big Chemex, you may find it's longer than 6 minutes too. 4 to 6 minutes is traditionally what's considered drip. And for drip grind, the amount of correct contact time. And even that's a pretty wide range. You know, you get a different cup of coffee at 4 than you do at 6 minutes because of the contact time. But there are other factors involved in coffee too. Brewing temperature will affect the taste and the strength, and so will and character, and so will the grind. And so will the turbulence, meaning the agitation. And this particular coffee maker, turbulence, is fantastic so far. I would say that is, and we're going to see that in just a second. I'm making the official spec, and it can vary depending upon the coffee maker, but it's 55 grams weighed of drip grind coffee for 1 liter of water. That's like the go-to default mode recipe for drip coffee. And really any coffee, but it's, well, not any coffee, not espresso, but that's a different type completely. But let's say any what's called filter method, such as the siphon or the vacuum. So anyway, let's do this. Let's get this going. I'm going to lift this out, and I'm going to. It has a nice removable container that holds the filter. One of the reasons I'm doing this on camera is and putting the water in is because of the sound. I just like the textures of brewing, the different sound textures. Maybe it's a little eccentric. This is a Melita filter. I just and then I'm going to just put this in here, and that is. Can we get a? Where's the best shot of this, Mike? Is it here? Is it there? You've got this camera, this front camera. Can you? I guess that's the only one that you can't zoom in on easily. Yeah, there we go. I'd like to show that. Actually, that's a great shot. Why don't you just zoom in on that camera? That's the other camera. Okay, I see. Okay, thank you. And look at that. It's got you can see the grind is, you can see some larger particles, but most of them are, you know, there we go. Kind of like a, there we go, yeah. So that's really what a drip grind is for this. And you can feel, it's coarse enough that you can, you know, kind of move it around, and it does not powdery at all. So, okay. Let's get this in here, and I've got that in there. Can you get an overhead shot? Is that possible to get? There we go. And then, so I'm putting it in here. It actually, you can feel it. It won't go around when you've got it in there right. And then for this particular test, I'm going to brew with it open, and I'm still going to take the temperature, and I apologize in advance. The manufacturer, the designer, has warned me that it may not be the best temperature it gets to. And okay, so we're going to be forgiving about that, but I just want to do it just to get an idea, a ballpark. And we won't call this a definitive test, but It's okay. And then I'm going to press the, can you get the front of the coffee maker, Michael? Right here where I'm pressing the button. Okay, this button, see it's blue right now, and then it's going to be red. I'm going to press it. That's an on. And that button is going to engage what's called a pre-infusion stage. And that means it dribbles a little bit of water on it and gets, and that's very valuable because you will see the grounds should rise and they should and degas, and then they'll settle, and then the real brewing begins, and the rest of the brewing, and that in countless observational tests, that has proven to get a richer brew. So, okay, let's just hit brew, and then we're going to look at an overhead shot of the water coming down. There's brew, and then can we get that overhead shot? Thank you, Michael. And let's see, is it plugged in and everything? Yes, of course it was, because the light came on. And let's see if it starts up here. It should. I hear it. Yeah, look at that. It's, no, it just hasn't started spinning around yet. There we go. And you can see it. Now, this is where it gets, and by the way, one of the things I like about it is they have a fair amount of water that comes down over it. Sometimes the pre-infusion stages in coffee makers vary. Some of them are very brief. If you're doing your own, whether you're doing a pour over Chemex or a Hario V60, any Melita, any kind of manual drip method, you're doing pre-infusion. And the idea is you wet the grounds and they kind of rise up because that's carbon dioxide releasing from its freshness. And then, especially if you're buying the really expensive and fresh coffee, and that's what part of what you're paying for. And then, but it rises and then it settles. And when it settles, it does a more thorough extraction, by all accounts. Okay, and then it's just going to sit there and let the water drain out and start to rest. And then we'll start to get this into motion. There we go. Now let's see if it starts spinning around. Let me make sure I don't have something blocking it. There we go. Maybe it did. So that's a important thing for me to observe. Let's see if it. Yeah, there we go. See how thoroughly it sprinkles over all the grounds, just like really the equivalent of what you would do when you're hand pouring, but it's frankly more consistent. And I, so far, have not seen anything that works better than this, at least to my eyes. Now, let's take a peek at what we're getting as far as the temperature goes. We're not going to be able to do that here. There we go. Which camera? Is this camera work? The side camera over here, this Panasonic? It's not showing a super hot temperature, by the way, so maybe I don't have it under the right thing. It's about 160. There we go. Now it's starting to go up. And now that may really seem low to you, but that's not unusual at all at this stage. Keep in mind, we're not measuring the water exactly under the tap. I can do that later, but we're really measuring the water that's in there, and that's why the whole are you really brewing at 200 degrees in there is probably, most of us are not. But, you know, there we go, it's 170, it's getting there. Again, I'm not sure, they did not apply for, with this brewer, a certification from the coffee industry, so I'm not, it's around 170 right now. I'm sure will go up higher. Usually this type of heating system does. But I just want to caution you, I think the heat, and of course it's not retaining the heat because the lid's not on. So here, let me put the lid on while we're, yeah. But I have found that the heat is, while it's important, it's a little overrated. There are some methods, such as the AeroPress, where many of the championships are won by people that are using temperatures right in here. So I'm not sure that there are a lot of options when it comes to temperature. So it doesn't make it a bad coffee maker. However, it does not meet the standards so far in my tests. However, it makes a great cup of coffee. So you got to ask yourself, well, what's important? We are at a point where by the way, thanks to the Specialty Coffee Association, they are doing some tests with UC Davis that are exploring a number of variables and kind of rethinking them, because frankly, there are enough brewing methods out there that you know, do you ever wonder, we certainly don't know everything there is to know about it. I think coffee's in a much earlier stage in its refinement than, say, wine or some other beverages. Okay, it should be, by the way, one thing about a liter, and I will say this, it is typically a 6 minutes or less extraction and contact time. So that's exactly what we want. What coffee is this, by the way? This is I know it isn't a very good bag, because it's my handwriting, so you can't make it out, I know. It's a Brazil. It's from Oren's Daily Roast. I just was in New York over the weekend, and I picked up several bags of coffee from Oren's, and it's one of my favorite roasters in the city. And I really love their, not only their ability to cup and get great coffees, find great coffees, but their ability to roast them. I've sometimes had the same coffee roasted, exact same bean from the same farm, roasted by a different roaster, and I invariably prefer Oren's. So, and here we go, and we should be just about there. And let's see what I'm just curious what our temperature is. There we go. There's our temperature is now 186, I saw. So, well, it's maybe too late now. Okay, 186. That's pretty close to 190, but again, this is not a final test. This is an exposure, and she did warn me that because of not keeping it closed, and there is a lot of steam that escaped, you can tell. That causes heat, so in fairness to the coffee maker, we shouldn't make any decision based upon this type of test. I have a flexible wire thermometer that I will use for the final testing that will allow me to completely seal it, and still it's a flat cable that will, and then has a sensor on the end of it, so I'll be able to seal it and get its temperature. I have not done that test yet, so I just want to be err on being fair. Otherwise, the manufacturers will not send me products. And it's just not fair. So it's not fair to decide based upon that. It's kind of like checking I suppose it's like testing an automobile's air conditioning system while you have the windows open. It's not a sealed, it's not how it's designed to work. All right, and this will be done in a moment, and we'll get a chance to pour everyone a cup of coffee. I wish you could have one too with us, but we have not figured out a way, any kind of app that really delivers a piping hot cup of coffee direct from our show to you through your phone or through your laptop. I'm sure that Steve Jobs would be working on it today if he were with us. All right, and then it doesn't appear to have an alarm at the end that tells you when it's done brewing. I mean, I'm going by the appearance, but I actually will end up opening this up and looking to see if it's done. I think it is done. And I also will take this opportunity to let it cool down so I can remove this. Wow, pretty neat. Oh, wow, look at that. That's very cool, the steam. A lot of sensual stuff with brewing coffee. And let's see what this is, how this comes out here. Now, how about it? Where can we, how about it right up here, Mike? Does that give you a good shot? Can we look at the overhead, and does it give us the shot we want? I want to see the, there we go. Well, you can see it's a little bit convex, meaning it's a little bit of a, it looks like the center of the grounds is actually slightly higher than it is on the sides, which might indicate to me that it's actually getting more extraction and contact at the sides than in the center because of the design of this. But that, I would say that's inconclusive. It looks, I'll tell you one thing, it looks all really saturated. There are no dry grounds. To me, that's the worst thing when you look at a coffee maker that has the grounds, a basket, you examine them at the end and you see any dry grounds. That is just such a waste. It means someone farmed and grew the best coffee, processed the best coffee. Then it was sent to a roaster who roasted the best coffee. And then you used a really nice high-end grinder and get that meets all the specs and does a consistent grind like we did today and ground it properly. And then you put it in a coffee maker that brews properly. Well, except if there are dry grounds. That's how important every step is along the way in the coffee process. And then you just basically paid any dry grounds you see, you just paid for them. Every bit of care that went into them, the cost, shipping them, all for naught. Those grounds never participated in the extraction process. So let's get everyone a cup of coffee, and meaning the three people that are here. This is Patricia's, and this is Michael's. This is mine. Let's see how it is. Oh, well, for one thing, it smells great. And one of the benefits because for whatever reason, and it may not be the coffee maker, one of the benefits of opening the top is that brewing at a slightly lower temperature is it will be drinkable more quickly. It's delicious, and 55 grams for 1 liter of coffee is kind of across the board the spec that most of us go to. And when I don't know how much coffee to brew in a new coffee maker, I always try that. I think 10 minutes or longer is too long, even if you grind coarse. I'll try it as a test, but generally my thought. But this tastes delicious, and I get complexity in the cup. This is, of course, a wonderful coffee. Brazil is a coffee that has its own, in my view, its own taste, and part of it's the terroir, meaning where it's grown, the land and the climate there, microclimates within the country, and I'm sure this is very carefully farmed and processed. And I spent the weekend with Oren, and I know we were going about how he cups coffees, and he even had coffees there that he brought home for the weekend just to try their samples that he was eager to try and to find the next great coffee. He's always on a quest to find the next great one. And when you know people well in the coffee business, there's really quite a bit of dedication. They are at every point. Whether you meet the people who actually farm and produce the coffee, you find the people that find them as green traders, and then you find the people that roast it, and of course brew it if you're getting it out. But hopefully you find baristas that care as much as you and I do about how it's brewed, and then final cup. Well, let's give you a little update. We are working with potentially a new ticket seller who is also considering trying to help us with finding sponsors, and we're still looking forward to trying to get an LA show together in early next year. I'm not sure it will be February anymore, but it will be. I want to have enough time that we can let everyone in the Southern Cal region know about CoffeeCon being there. Like I said, I've said this countless times. I get a pit of the stomach feeling every time I go on Twitter right after CoffeeCon. I always see at least one post like this. OMG, CoffeeCon came through my city and I didn't know about it. And I take that, of course, personally, because that's part of my job, is to make sure everyone in the world knows about it. If I could, I would. I should get a jacket with it embroidered, the date and where it's going to be, and just walk around the city. I don't know how to do it other than we use as much social media as we can. We do these clips and we always mention it, but we definitely want to have that one as soon as possible. And meanwhile, we're having continuing conversations with some brewer manufacturers who usually are very generous and getting involved, because really it's not necessarily a sales event, although more and more, and thank you to attendees, they are making it one. But they want to support the roasters, and they want to support the farmers and the coffee aficionado, who is someone like you and me. So I'm Coffee Kevin, and it's great to talk to you. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see if we'll look at. I'll be fiddling with this a little more, and we'll come back again. And any Pat, is there anything I need to? Oh, okay. Anyway, I'll see you soon, and enjoy your coffee as much as we're going to enjoy this one.